So you might be wondering, how do I install 33s on my 5th gen 4runner with zero body modifications? Well, I'm going to tell you how I did it. And honestly, spoiler, not a whole lot. It's more about selecting the right parts than it is doing modifications to the actual 4runner. Let me show you. So one thing I want to get out of the way is I do have a 2.5-inch lift kit. This is an Ironman Foam Cell Core Pro lift kit with their upper control arm. It's awesome, zero complaints. The vehicle's amazing. But what you need to know, no matter what lift kit you buy, a lift kit does not make the tire fit the body. See, the wheel well up here is only so big. So if your tire is bigger than the wheel well and you put a lift kit on, it will fit. But then when you turn the wheels or you flex a little bit, you're going to get rubbing. And that's why you have a lot of people who say, oh, the tires fit, but when I turn left and back out of the driveway, it rubs the front bumper or rubs the body cab or rubs somewhere in there. It's because their tires don't fit inside the wheel well properly. And we'll get to that. We'll get to more about that here in a moment. The upper control arm is really important, though, because it maintains geometry of the suspension, but it gives you a lot more positive degrees of caster, so it actually allows you to shift that front tire forward or back a little bit, just to center it up a bit more than what comes from the factory, but still maintain perfect geometry when it comes to driving down the road. And just so we could prove a point here, I have zero modifications to the fender liner here. That's how it comes from the factory. And I have zero modifications to the body here. The tire size we went with is 255/80R17, and there's a really big reason for that. You see, 4runners, they hate wide tires. They don't hate big tires. You can run a really big tire in that fender. It's the width of the tire they hate the most. And here's why. So when you get a big tire, right, a wider tire, let's say a 12.5-inch wide tire or whatever, you now have a tire that's gotten wider on both sides. Well, to make sure the tire doesn't rub on the inside, what most people do is put a wheel spacer or buy aftermarket rims that gives you more offset and shifts the tire out. Problem with doing that is the further you stick the tire out, the more the tire swings to the front and the back, that outer edge, right? So if you have a pipe that's this long, when you go to turn it, this outside corner is going to swing a lot further on the arc path. Well, when it swings forward a lot more, you start taking this edge of the tire and running into things like the bumper or like the body mount in the back. That's why when you run a tire size like 285/70R17s, which actually are a smaller but wider tire, quite a bit smaller, in fact, but a wider tire, you run into problems because that tire has to stick out further, right? Your tire is now swinging further when you turn. You'll see that everyone who has this issue with tire rub, it's actually this corner on the front and the back, this side of the tire, on the front and the back of the tire. It's never in here. And that's because they've pushed the tire out and now the tire is swinging further to the front and the rear. Right? It's just how it works. It's how it works with the geometry of the steering on everything, not just independent front suspension, but also solid axles like that truck. If I were to take that truck and stick the tires way out, they would swing further, and it too would probably touch the rear of that cab right there. So for the rear, I did absolutely nothing to make that fit. In fact, the mud flap and everything else is still intact. You can see my stock running boards are still there, and I have no issues front or rear. The only thing I did do is put a track bar relocation bracket. I'll link to the one that I really like, and that's just because when you lift a vehicle, the geometry of the track bar kind of gets messed up a little bit, and it'll pull the axle over to the passenger side. But the track bar relocation bracket fixes that. It recenters the axle, and it does a bunch of other things that fix the geometry of the track bar in total that make this like a factory ride, honestly. So let's recap what I did in order to make the 33-inch tires fit. I have a 2.5-inch lift kit with an upper control arm. All that does is give us more adjustment to move the front tires back and forth and give us more caster, which is good for these things. The other thing I did is I kept the factory wheels. You can run aftermarkets, but you need to keep factory offset. And then I'm running a narrow 255/80R17 in tire. Narrow is the key. And if I'm honest with you, I probably could run the new 255/85R17, which is closer to a 35 with this same setup. I don't know that I can for sure, but I'd really like to get a hold of a set of those tires and give it a shot and see what happens. Be really cool if you could run this setup with very little modification and a 35-inch tire. That would be awesome. So that's how you do it. That's how you get 33-inch tires on a 5th gen 4runner with zero body modifications. If you guys end up doing this, let me know. Let me know how it works out for you. If you have variations, maybe you do a different lift amount or no lift at all. Also, let me know. I'd be really interested to hear. And if someone has a set of 255/85R17s on a factory wheel and let me borrow them, I'd be really interested to see if we can fit it onto my 4runner and see what modifications have to be done. Just kind of document it. See what has to be done in order to make those fit I'm hoping it'd be very minimal. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we see you in the next video.